Okay, next up, and again, it doesn't really matter, but next up I'm going to do the rear brake cable just because I'm doing brake stuff. So the brake cable is going to go, again, it's going to fit through this little bendy silver side, goes into the brake opening. It's going to feed along the underside of, I'll tape this down, and then it's going to bend around, and the first cable stop will be, it'll stop here, and then it runs, I'll cut the housing here, and then it runs cable until here, and then there's another little stretch of housing that just goes from this stop down to the noodle on this side. So that's pretty much all that's going to happen here. One important thing to check for when you're doing your housings in your cockpit area is to make sure that when you cut, it's more important for the shift cables really, but when you cut your housings, you have enough room so that you can fully rotate the handlebars without the cable catching, without it limiting the arrangement. Not that you ever turn this sharply, but still you don't want, convention is you don't want the cables to be basically limiting your range of motion. So when I'm cutting this brake cable, I want to make sure that again, it doesn't matter, I've got plenty of spare, but you don't want it to be egregiously long, but you also want to make sure that, so there's going to be a stop in there. You want to make sure that it can, see, I would want to give this a little bit more slack. So it would come through like that. And then bending this way, that doesn't really matter in this case. So I will cut this housing right here. Okay, so that's rear brake housing 1. Now I need rear brake housing 2. And then I just need enough that it's going to hit this noodle. It's going to be a very short piece of housing on this side. Okay, rear brake housing is installed along the front section. Housing is now installed along the rear section, connected to the adjustable noodle and running through there. So now I just need to I need to run the cable. Okay, so far so good. One other pro tip, the kit also has a little frame protector donut that for this section that runs on the top of your frame. You don't have to, but you can stick one of those on and adjust that so that it just prevents that cable from slapping on the frame with vibration and whatnot. And you know what I didn't do? I'm going to put the other little frame protector donut on this section of housing. This is way easier to do before you run all the cables. It's actually almost impossible after you run the cables. So I'm just going to stick this on. So that brake stop is nicely seated now. Now all I have to do is just run the brake cable the rest of the way through. Now all I'm going to do is squeeze those brakes together. And this side's a little easier for whatever reason. But now I'm just going to let go the tension just a tiny bit and do a preliminary tightening. Yikes. Oh, I don't know if I like this. Yikes. Okay, got my brake cable tension where I want it. You're gonna have to come. I'm gonna have to show you. Check this out. This is exactly what I was pretty much afraid of. But I'll adjust the. I'm gonna adjust those mini V brake spring tensions on the sides first. Get that all fired up, and then I'll show you something really interesting. All right. So continuing on with the cables and housings, rear brake housings are in. Cable has been drawn through, and now I've got it clamped down with the right tension, and I've adjusted the spring tension on the arms here. So right now the tire is rolling nicely through there, and it's got a little bit of space on either side, and that's pretty good. One thing I wanted to show you, this is the big fear that I had this whole time, and that is how much clearance I have on the top of my tire, and it is almost nothing. So there's this little nub on the bottom of this Tektro, on the bottom of that tire. That's got less than a millimeter of clearance right now. That is incredibly tight, and that's no good. I thought that maybe the tension would pull this kind of up, but it's really not. It's not doing that. I mean, when I engage the brake, yeah, it just pulls completely horizontal. So that's not good. That's not good at all. I don't like that. I'm going to take it off, and I'll sand down or grind down or file down that little nub, and that at least gives me peace of mind that it's going to be okay, and I'll make sure it's nice and smooth. But I'm probably going to look into long-term or even short-term. I'm going to look into getting at least a rear cantilever brake. So I'm going to probably run the Mini V up front, which does the most of the braking for a bike anyway, and then a cantilever in back. Probably a short arm canty. I'll have to look. But this was a little bit of a gamble. I knew it was a little gamble running a mountain bike frame with Mini V brakes. I knew that these tires would be pushing it in terms of their size, the clearance of the arms. So that was a known possibility. But again, so it seems as if every time I turn a corner with this bike, I'm running into problems that I pretty much anticipated would be possibly issues, and sometimes I'm able to clear it and it works, and sometimes I'm not. So it's not unexpected. It's just a little disappointing. It's a little disappointing, but what are you gonna do? I could also try some V brakes and just see if there's enough, if I can get the tension on the cable right so that I have enough tension on there. But I don't have spare V brakes, and I don't have spare cantilever brakes. So at this point, it's either fix this as much as I can and make it work, and probably I'll do both. Think about ordering a new set. So again, I don't mind ordering parts because I like having spares. This is something I do as a hobby. But if you were to build a bike one time, this is the caveat of doing this type of project: is that unless you're doing a single drivetrain or a single manufacturer and it's all one group set that you're doing, then you can't be guaranteed that all these components are going to work 100% with each other. I mean, I did the math on these. Before I ordered these brakes, I knew the arm length, and I looked at the frame, and I measured it, and I knew it would be close, and it is. You know, I was hoping that it would be a little bit more clear. This side has almost no clearance. The front side has a decent amount, so I can't explain that away. I don't know why I just don't know why that is. The distance between the post and the rim is obviously longer in the back, or shorter, or whatever I'm trying to say. So, just another frustration. But at least I've got the brakes in. The brake cables and housings are in. At least that's all set up. And I'm going to go from there. So I just hand filed and sanded down that part that was causing me a problem on the rear brake. I haven't mounted it yet, but I made sure it's nice and smooth. There's nothing sharp that's going to, if it does bump the tire, it's not going to be any worse than any other angle that was already on here. But I took a little bit of that nub off. I think that'll help give it that tiny bit more clearance. Okay, here's that rear brake now remounted with that filed off portion on there, and it is better. It is a lot better. I mean, there's at least 2 millimeters now of clearance. There's that brand new tire, like middle little rubber, but this is actually fine. If you think about it, a lot of road bikes, their frames have probably just about less clearance than this on tires. So I feel a lot better now. And it's really smooth, and I don't think it affects the integrity of that noodle part at all. I mean, I really don't. I certainly wouldn't hold it on Tektro if these fail, but I don't think they will. I think it's going to be fine, and I just feel a lot better. I feel a lot better having that extra little bit of clearance. Otherwise, I think every time I hear a noise in the rear of the bike, I think that I'm cutting my tire basically with that little nub. But I think it's going to work better now. Okay, onwards onto the shift cables, I guess.